On MITE Radio.
Here with the lovely Lewis to talk a little bit about carers. Can you share a personal story that highlights a significant moment in your caregiving journey?
There's so many to choose from. Do you want? I could probably do the most powerful emotional one. Was with both of my parents. When my mum passed, somehow it was easier with her, but when my father had a massive heart attack on the day he passed, as we discussed amongst ourselves, if it ever points where Dad could not be, there's not much chance of him surviving, he did the old do not resuscitate thing. So the doctor, on the day he passed, I think it was like I stepped out of myself for a while. Just that brief moment, I said to the doctor, well, we discussed it, Dad and I said, do not resuscitate him. And a few hours after that, he passed away. My sister and niece were with him the day. I'd gone home to have some rest because I'd been awake for a better part of 24 hours by that stage.
Yeah.
So I was running on empty. But I was just getting home when my mobile rang and the nurse was on the other end and they said, Dad's passed. And I just completely lost it. But it's surprisingly when Mum went 21 months later, I was more at peace with it because the second time around, if you pardon the expression, was easier.
Perhaps it didn't happen quite so quickly. The last.
I have a friend of mine who had a 7-year gap between his parents passing. But they say when you see your parents age, you're going from the young sprightly things to frail and elderly. It's hard for a child or their children to take. For me, I didn't get bothered by that because I'm living with the situation day in and day out. I never gave into what often some people say, well, you got to brace for when the final moment comes. But if you did that, that's a rather fatalist attitude to take. Because if you're bracing yourself for the moment when the moment happens, you won't enjoy them while you have them with you.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
And when a person says that, if they're in a caring role, that's a sure sign for me that they're starting to buckle under the pressure. And I had my moments too. But despite a few bad, stressful days, it was an incredible, rewarding experience. But it was probably the decision to just make Dad comfortable on the day he passed was, I almost choked on the words. It was very, but he had a good run. He was nearly 90, so yeah.
Interesting people, interesting times. You're with Kay on MITE Radio.
Had offered help at the time. Is there a way that you feel that they could have offered help in a more practical way or a way that would have made it easier for you to have received that help? In hindsight, was there some help that was really useful and some that wasn't so useful?
Well, for all but probably the last year of my caring role, I did everything myself. No outside home or hackers, whatever they called it in those days. We did have some help from one of those hack providers that come to your home and help out with the thing.
Yes.
But we stopped that after a while because we needed them at certain times and they couldn't fit in. So it was probably in the last few months of my mother's life that we finally got a crowd that helped her with showering and things like that. But despite being very frail in the last few months of her life, she could still move, but she had to use a Zimmer frame. Dad was the same thing in his last few months, but up until about probably the last 6 months of their lives, they had to be careful with walking sticks. But no, it was only the final few months that you could see the real physical deterioration. So I was very lucky in a way because I was able to do it all myself, but I did concede to both of them in their final months that I was starting to buckle under the physical pressure, because I was in my early 40s when I started, and I was in my late 50s when I finished, and physically I was feeling it.
Yeah, that's a long time as well. It's a very long time.
So, I mean, 16 years was, I just cannot believe into that I did it for 16 years because, but I definitely would never take it on now because I'm not that I've revealed how old I am, but I don't think I've done my bit for king and country, so to speak. But no, I it's not a young man's game, but it's or young woman person's game rather. But no, when Mum passed away, somebody used the term, "Oh, you must be relieved now. You could get your life back," and I almost tore their throat out by saying, "Hey, I didn't give up my life." I really hate it when somebody says, "Oh, now you get a life again." That expression really grates on my nerves, because when I look back on it, it actually empowered me, and I think it strengthened who I am as a person, and just the added bonus of being family members. But no, as I said, without repeating myself, it's by the time my mum passed away, I would have loved to have had both of them around for. I mean, hell's bells, she would have been 100 this year if she had been around. But a lady who I think of as a second mum, she was my next door neighbour where I used to live, and she passed away last year at the age of 100. And I thought of her, and her husband who passed away many years ago, I thought of them as my second mum and dad. So my mum would have been 100 now if she'd been around. So but as I say, I think 93 is nothing to sneeze at. Yeah. But those with the question of that was probably the toughest decision, with Dad just giving the consent to not revive him. So yeah, it's never easy, but the peace and contentment you get from making that decision is they've had a good life.
When we say we play great music, this is what we mean. MITE Radio.
We have the app of the day. Today's app is... I'm tangled. I've got the headphones tangled. I was dancing too much. I've got the headphones tangled around the chair leg, and I'm trying to undo that as I'm moving away, and Tony's leaning over to do the buttons for me. So thanks for that, babe.
That's all right.
Appreciate it. What is our app of the day?
I wanted to talk about Brain Track. Based on the news article about dementia.
That before, yes.
Yep. Look, it's a great little app, and you can download it from the app stores, from the Android store and the Apple App Store. Let me just unlock my device so I can tell you what it looks like. So look for the word Brain Track. It's one word, Brain Track. It's a fun way to explore your brain health, right? So there is some benefits here in kind of getting in early and measuring your brain capacity, if you like.
I missed that by about 45 years.
Yeah. It's a good idea to draw a line in the sand and say, this is where I am now. Look, my memory's not as good as it used to be, or I'm having trouble remembering this particular kinds of things, or there might be gaps of your memory in your life. All of these are kinds of symptoms and things you should probably look at and try to determine, like anything, if it stays like that, for plateaus for a period of time, then not to worry too much about it. But if it starts to get worse, you kind of want to know what it is. And there are a whole bunch of things that can trigger, including diet and exercise and a whole bunch of stuff.
But that also means that there's a whole bunch of stuff that can actually make a positive difference.
Yep. So the idea of Brain Track is it kind of don't think of it as a test. Think of it as just a way of determining where you're at.
Okay.
So you've got something to gauge against moving forward. Because if you don't know, like you don't, oh, I want to lose weight. Well, what's your current weight? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know, then how do you know that you actually need to lose weight? And how do you know when you lose weight?
If you want to learn another language, you want to know that how much of that language you already know before you start, so that you can feel good when you've learnt it.
There's a whole bunch of reasons for drawing this line in the sand. So it's a fun way to explore your brain health. It's an engaging monthly kind of travel around the world game. There's a whole bunch of countries that you visit, and it kind of it's interesting in a way that it tries to engage you in different areas. So you learn about, along the way, the risk factors that can increase your chances of developing dementia, and how to modify these factors to strengthen your overall brain health. Right, so these are really good words to be saying, and read that document that I mentioned earlier on. The link, as I say, are in the show notes. It allows you to monitor your performance over time. All right, so you do a test today. I'm using the word test, but you know, how good's your memory in going from A to B?
Yes.
You get from A to B. You try it again tomorrow. Is it going to be easier tomorrow, or is it going to be more difficult tomorrow? And when we start to change things, how does that change affect your memory? You know, when you're starting adding another level of complexity to something, or another thing for you to remember. You remember playing that game where you put objects on a tray and you cover it with a tea towel?
Yes.
And then you open it up and you say, oh, I've taken one away. Which one was it?
Yes.
You know? That's the kinds of things that these games do. The other cool thing about it is if you're doing it regularly, you're going to get some kind of pattern and a graph and be able to determine trending and patterning, which you can share with your doctor. And if you see, if nothing else, it'll start a conversation. Which is a really good thing. So there are 9 games or 9 mini games for each of these countries that you visit, and Australia is the first one. So it talks about a game called Check-In, which looks at risks, right? What your risks are for brain problems or whatever it is. Then there's a meet and greet, which looks at your recall memory, baggage claim, which is about focusing.
That's very cute.
Marketplace, which looks at calculations, just basic calculations. There's a travel rating, which looks at emotion. Pack your bags, which looks at languages and phrases. So can you understand what, if I show you the Italian word for apple, and then we talk about other things, and then come back later and I say, what was that Italian word for apple? You know, these kinds of things, languages and phrases, and what phrase fits with a question that you want to go when you're travelling. Snapshot looks at shapes, so recalling shapes in memory. Ticket box looks at solving problems. And then there's a city tour, which is my favourite and the one I do worst at. Is that they say, okay, you're driving down the road. I don't know if you've ever been to the UK, and they have these placards on the side of the road showing the roundabout maze that you're about to go into. There's one roundabout which leads to 3 more roundabouts, which leads to 2 roundabouts. It's just a bunch of squiggles on a board as far as I'm concerned, but you need to figure out how you're going to get to that top right-hand exit. So this is not quite that complex, but it's, you know, you're taking you from A to B, and they show you a map, and then they take the map away, and then they say, okay, you're on this first part of the road. They only show you that part of the road. Do you turn left or right? Do you get to the roundabout? Do you go around to the right, or do you go around to the left? So they give you the whole map to soak in, and then they just give you it piecemeal. And then, you know, I got to the other end and I was very happy. And then they said, okay, now we're going back. So I completely stuffed it up going backwards. But, yeah, if you
It
don't
sounds
know
like you
your
had a
north,
bit of fun along the way.
if you don't know your north, south, east and wests, it can be a bit challenging. But the cool thing about this is that it will remind you to play monthly. If you don't do it you can do it more frequently if you want to. And these little exercises change up as you go through. So have a go. Brain Track is what it's called. You can get it from the Android App Store and from the
Google Play Store.
The Android Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, and you go to Brain Track. Here we go.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
About having an unpaid care role.
Well, the first shock for me was the financial impact. Yeah. One of the first contacts I had with support was when a social worker handed me some information about getting the carer's pension. And that was and of course the carers' allowances. And as the years went by, even though I was not terribly happy when Rudd in 2008 was threatening to cut back on carers, thing, but they gave us these one-off yearly bonuses that proved so popular, and other things, and they were proved so politically advantageous that they became what was a one-off every time the budget rolled around, became a regular thing, and as far as I know, they're still around. But no, the only thing I used to joke with Mum and Dad, I said, Dad, and Mum said, what incensed me was I was getting probably the equivalent of what they would get combined in their age pensions as a carer's pension. And I said to Dad, I was getting double, essentially as a single. And I thought, well, I wasn't complaining because that's a really nice, well, in its day, a good amount. But I found that being married on the age pension, you actually get worse off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I used to joke with him, said, Dad, Mum, you ought to get a divorce and live in a relationship because you get more money. But no, it's. I think it doesn't. I don't think it's right that when you're on any form of pension, especially the age pension, just because you're married, you shouldn't be paid less. You're still an individual, and you should get the same as a single person. But it's wrong. I think it's absolutely reprehensible that because you're married, you get less money than a single person on the age pension or any form of pension so I think that's.
I presume that was set up in the days where you had half the expenses. If you're a married couple, then you've got one house, one mortgage, one set of electricity. But these days, it's too expensive to live on your own. Most people have to share anyway.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I stayed living with my folks, obviously, was the caring role. But even back in the 90s, the rents were outrageous. I mean, good. Look at it now. I mean.
We're in the middle of a housing crisis.
Yeah. So I mean, the last 3 years, just for everybody generally, it's about time, after 3 tough years for every sense of the word, from COVID to what's going on in the world at the moment, it's about time somebody turned on the happy juicer and life improve. It will. But it's just about I think people have become fatigued and tired of the last 3 years, what we've been through from COVID to God knows what else in the world. But things will come for the better. It's just a matter of when people start to tire from the stress and strain of everyday life. You want it to where something happens in your life where you're happy again. But there's always times where we will come on and press a resolve. That's the word I was looking for. And I think the last 3 years have been there. And so I think about time the next 3 years turn things a bit. And hopefully they will.
I hope so.
Too rapidly sometimes, I think.
Is there anything in particular that excites you about the future of technology, and perhaps something that scares you about the future of tech?
Not really. My pet gripe with technology is when you actually want to talk to somebody and you pick up the phone. I actually like to get through to speak to a human being. Call centres, don't even get me started on them. But with few exceptions, when you phone up somebody, you don't want to go through this irritating cycle. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that. And also a lot of places where you actually want to speak to somebody, you can't. And often on web pages or things like that, there's often, other than an email or a mobile address, there's just literally you can't. They won't. Almost like they don't want to speak to you in a way.
Yeah.
I think there's too much automation. I think there needs to be a return to web places when you pick up the phone and dial, you get through to a human being. There's too much of this outsourcing overseas. There's no disrespect, but you phone up somebody and you wind up in India or the Philippines, and no disrespect intended, but you can't understand what they're saying.
I actually had the experience with a federal government department just recently.
Yeah.
But because I didn't know the name of the person I was trying to get through and their extension, I couldn't get through to anyone. I had to email. Like, how does that work when the government staff are meant to be there providing a service and helping?
And of course, there's another pet gripe we all have where they say something subspiel like we're expecting a large number of calls, blah blah blah. The wait time for this call is 3 hours or something. and no disrespect to Centrelink, but they have improved a lot. But
Yes.
there are still places out there who I will not name that. One time I was on the phone for 3 hours before I got to, and then you're going to love this. 5 minutes into the call, it dropped out, and I came this close to hurling the phone across the room. But what surprised me was that the person I spoke to rang me back.
Lovely.
Yes, and I said sarcastically, "You feeling okay?" Because I thought, okay, but what I do now is and most things are online now with MyGov and things like that. But if there's something that's taking too long, is the glitch when you do something online. Like for example, if you need to go to Centrelink, for example, very rarely have I had to do that since my caring days. But sometimes I'm not going to sit on the phone for 3 hours with the same irritating karaoke or what's that thing? It's like a Baroque music with those old sort of high harpsichord, whatever they are, and of course my pet peeve is when they say about 200,000 times we value call that one, please, yeah, and.
It gets a bit old after they've had you on hold for more than 20 minutes, doesn't it?
Well, there was a wonderful old Bank West ad, I think it was. This lady was sitting with on a deck chair with a nice fancy drink, and the joke was press 38, and then it went back to the opening menu. And then she hurled the drink in. so no, I think it was a Bank West ad, but no, there's very few ads that don't irritate me. But technology works when you know how to use it.
Thank you for joining us on Interesting People, Interesting Times. A big thank you again to Carers WA and Lottery West for your support and your help. And be with us, same time, same place next week for more on Interesting People, Interesting Times.